Hey guys, so I want to make a video about the Scandinavian defence but taking the classical line. So I've been trying to build up an aggressive and surprising repertoire for my own play, and the opening move, funnily enough, that I found the most challenging, where there isn't a kind of surprising way to get my opponent off their guard and take control of the game for myself, is actually the move 1e4. So now previously I have played the Scandinavian modern variation where you play d5 on the second move, and then if white takes, you can play knight to f6, and that can lead to this gambit called the Icelandic palm gambit, and I do have a video on that, but that scenario doesn't actually come up very often, and it's not really much of a killer gambit. So in my efforts to try and find a way to get my opponent out of their comfort zone right from the start of the game, I've started looking into the more classical lines of the Scandinavian. So the thing I like about the Scandinavian is that your opponent very often doesn't expect it. They'll probably expect e5, certainly more at the beginner level, or maybe c5 with the Sicilian. But I don't feel ready to dive into all of that Sicilian theory because there are so many different ways for white to respond to this, and as I know, playing against the Sicilian, there are some interesting and surprising lines. So there's an awful lot to learn with that. With Scandinavian, it feels like it's kind of simpler. And what I found, I've just played my first game using the Scandinavian kind of classical line today, and I'm going to show you how the game went. And I feel like it leads to a more open style game where there are aggressive chances, and that kind of suits me. So I'll show you how the game went. So white takes the pawn, which is normal, and one thing you have to watch out for, of course, is this Tennyson gambit here. I've got a separate video on that, and that's one thing that I may play when I'm playing as white with e4 against the Scandinavian. Another very interesting one here is the Black Mardima gambit, which I think is even deadlier than the Tennyson gambit. If you get them, they're both wonderful killer gambits. But I'm probably going to play the Black Mardima gambit, I think, for a while as white. Anyway, so the most principal move is e takes d5, and then with a classical line, you capture the pawn with the queen, right? And this pretty much begs for knight to come to f3. As I've said in videos before, when I've been playing against the Scandinavian, I'm generally quite comfortable when I see this, because I know that I get to develop my knight for free, the queen's going to have to move away, and then it feels like it gives white a lead in development. But the point of this, the queen captures lines, is that it gives you other options. Okay, so one of the once the knight comes out, one of the standard responses is queen to a5. So that's what I played in this game. I've been through a video by Gotham Chess, which is very good and a very good primer to how to play this. And in the game, my opponent played knight to f3, which I think is very common. So what you notice about this, putting the queen on a5 here means that it is in line with your opponent's king. And that may cause some problems. If they want to develop the d-pawn, which they should really very soon, play d4, then this knight will actually be pinned against the king for some time. So I now develop my light squared bishop. Because white has not played d4, and instead has brought out his knight to f3, that means that I can actually quite quickly develop my queen's bishop and my queen's knight, and maybe take advantage of this semi-open d-file to castle queenside, put my rook on d8, and have some pressure now on the d-file. So my opponent breaks the pin with his light squared bishop, I develop my knight to c6, and now we have d4, but it's a little bit late, a little bit slow, because it allows me now to castle queenside, and now I've got two pieces attacking this pawn, and it is defended twice currently, so that's kind of okay. White now decides to develop his dark squared bishop and add an additional defender to the pawn, and I simply push now e6 with the idea of bringing out my dark squared bishop maybe to b4. One option is maybe to capture the knight, and if bishop recaptures, then we've still only got two attackers against the pawn and still two defenders on white side, so that didn't really make much sense. Now white starts some counterplay on the queen side with a3. I'm not too concerned about that. I mean, right now my queen's got several safe squares to go to. We have a counterattack now with the knight now addressing the f7 square with the idea of a fork against both of my rooks. Now I don't want that. So first I capture the bishop on e2. This attacks the queen and forces a recapture. And now I play my my rook to d7 to defend this pawn. Now the computer actually said this was a mistake, and that what I should have done is play knight takes d4 now, because with the queen moving here, that's removed the second defender of this pawn. So knight takes d4 now would be attacking the queen and would probably prompt the bishop to recapture, at which point then I can recapture with my rook, and yeah, I might still lose this pawn, but I've got ideas maybe of moving my bishop, doubling up my rooks and so on. But there we go. So I decided to defend the pawn with my rook. White now castles and I kick the knight. So the knight retreats to e4, and now I grab the pawn because I notice it's under defended. Bishop takes, rook takes. So this does feel like quite a nice open game with opportunities for attacks. Plus we've got opposite side castling, which is always fun. Gives you the opportunity to start a pawn storm against your opponent's position. It also gives them the opportunity to start one against yours. And here we go, b4 comes in, and I simply move my queen over now to e5. So I've got an idea here, I've got a plan. And my plan is, once I develop my final minor piece and complete development, I could line up my bishop behind the queen with ideas of attacking and checkmating down that diagonal. The rook comes across now. This gives the king one escape square, but not enough. I now bring my bishop out, and this is the critical moment because my opponent actually misses the fact that I have mate in 2. So, I mean, there's lots of things they could have done. Could have simply pushed a pawn. This knight's properly defended. There's no real reason to do anything other than to defend at this point. And this is one of the things that you've really got to master to improve at chess, is to get a feeling for the balance of when you should be attacking, when you should be defending. Now here we have knight takes knight with a discovered attack on the queen. So let's say, you know, pawn takes. I don't know, maybe could have anticipated an exchange of queens, but then I've got a pawn here, haven't I? So the queen would be adequately defended, but this is absolutely the wrong move because now I have queen takes h2, check. There's only one legal move, king f1, queen h1 is checkmate. So there you go. I've been dismissive of the Scandinavian for black in the past, but at least on this first outing, it produced an interesting game, an attacking game, and one that I think kind of suits my style. So, I mean, previously I've been playing the Black Lion against one e4, and quite honestly I've had mixed results about that. So, I mean, yes, it's an aggressive opening. Yes, it can lead to some very nice attacks on the king side with the Black Lion, but this might be a good one, I think, for my repertoire right now. So I'm going to keep playing this for a while. I'm going to play it against the bots. I'm going to build up my theory, and I shall report back and let you know what results I get. And if you play the Scandinavian classical lines with queen takes pawn on d5, then let me know how it works out for you as well. But this is looking promising. So that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe if you haven't subscribed to Chess Bootcamp, and I'll see you soon.